the Big 1-2 here on Sikkim 365 Radio and 365 Sports. I'm Paul Catalina alongside JD Bickel, welcoming a new sponsor, Shorty's Pizza Shack at 12th and Bagby, to the Big 1-2. Listen, you look at me, you know I'm a big enthusiast with Shorty's Pizza Shack. JD, I know you are as well.
I am.
Welcome aboard to Shorty's Pizza Shack. Thanks to Shorty and to Kyle Ferguson for coming aboard. And JD, another week of bad news potentially for the Big 12 in that the Pac-12, Big 10, ACC Scheduling Alliance, which I hope they just start calling it the Alliance.
Yeah.
That way I don't have to say all three conferences every time, is going to be official, is official. They're going to do that. It has to do with governance and scheduling, and there's a lot of, spider web of different things that come off this. But like we talked about last week, there's a lot that could happen here and a lot that doesn't seem to really fit the Big 12 in, and I'm not completely understanding why at this point.
You get the feeling that everyone's sort of like picking on the Big 12 just a little bit. The Big 12, for whatever reason, continues to be left out. So we're going to see. I'm still waiting with bated breath, thinking there's some sort of alternate ending to this to where the Big 12 finds a way in, because in my mind, they have enough pieces to be attractive. Like you said last show, everybody's money's green, including those in the Big 12. So why would you not try and find a way to whittle them into this thing? We'll see, because at the end of the day, it's the SEC and everybody that's not the SEC. So why not, deal them a few cards? We'll see. I'm hoping they get invited to the dance, if you will.
All right, see if you can follow me on this theory. What if, and I floated this on the radio show on Monday, what if they're just waiting out to see what happens so that they get all these teams on the cheap? For example, if I'm Texas Tech and you're Oklahoma State, and we promise wherever we're going to go together. But whatever conference doesn't want both of us, they only want one of us. And again, to our listeners and viewers, this is an extreme hypothetical.
We love it.
What if you don't want one? Like, I don't want JD, I just want Paul,
Fair.
And I'm just going to wait until it crumbles so I don't have to do with any of these other agreements.
I mean, that would be a good business move, because that's sort of been the narrative is, okay, some of these teams are like a package deal. Like we talked about the Texas schools when this first all broke was Texas Tech, Baylor, TCU. They're only attractive as a three-piece. Maybe you just want TCU. Could make sense. I think that could make a lot of sense. I'd be on board with that. That'd be extremely maniacal. That'd be very evil, but it would check out with the way this thing has trended with leaving the Big 12 out.
Yeah,
feels evil.
I do. And it's weird because, and we've all tried to do this thing where we like rank who's more attractive to everybody else.
Yeah.
And I don't really I think they're all I think it's also trying to pick the skinniest kid at fat camp right now.
Okay.
It's just everybody's got drawbacks, and you can do that with everything,
Turn into the biggest fashion show in all of college football is who is the hottest right now. Is it TCU? Is it Oklahoma State? Is it Iowa State? And yeah, it's kind of a weird time right now. It feels like everyone's on the auction block.
For every reason that you can give me why they're attractive, I can give every school two reasons why they're not.
Yeah.
And so that I think that's the eighth's problem. Like TCU, they keep saying about this Fort Worth market that's not really a thing. It's not really a thing because the Dallas-Fort Worth market classically doesn't care about college sports. They're a pro sports town. It's the same reason why, Miami's kind of lucky to be where they are in the ACC because that market's already, there's already enough, grads of those schools in Miami that already had it, so it's a small school. It's not a big school. It's and you find this more the ratings dominate the college markets, Tuscaloosa, every TV's tuned into to Alabama. Waco, Texas, most of the TVs are tuned in to Baylor. Fort Worth, meh.
Yeah.
And if you look at the attendance at TCU, their fans don't care as much.
Yeah,
they don't care. They don't
yeah.
You go to a TCU game. Believe me, you can get tickets most of the time.
Yeah,
I mean you can get tickets, and so I'm not trying to knock TCU by any stretch of the imagination. No. But again, you want to tell me what's wrong? Baylor's athletic department as a whole is very attractive as far as they're good in everything. They have a really good athletic director. They have really good coaches across the board. They've won national championships in big time sports. Of course, basketball this past year, but they're a school that's now, it's at 18,000 now and on its way to 20. Okay, but are they ever going to be 50,000? No, they're never going to be. Baylor University is never going to be a school with 50,000 people. or not at least in the, doubling plus 10 in our lifetimes, it's not going to be that, maybe if the population of Earth explodes,
Yeah.
like in the United States specifically, but again, that's not really what's going on in the USA. So, I mean, there's all these things, and I do wonder, with this alliance, which has to do with scheduling, why you wouldn't want to schedule some games in Texas, why you wouldn't want more teams in the voting block, why you wouldn't want more of that, unless you are just waiting them out to see if you can pluck this conference on the cheap. If there's no exit fees, if there's no this, if you can pretty much make them any deal that you want, like, okay, you can come to this conference, but here's the deal we're making you. And you're like, well, at least I can get there.
Yeah, 100%. And I think there's so many layers to it to where I'm trying to gauge exactly how much is the TV market worth for you in Iowa or for Dallas-Fort Worth or for Kansas. And like that's obviously a piece of it, but how much weight did you input on like on-field performance? Because that's something that like gets tossed around a lot, and some people say it's super important. Some people say it doesn't matter as long as you have eyeballs on the TV. Like, where do you fall on that? Because I feel like TCU, in a lot of ways, has probably been like a more attractive brand, but then TV market maybe more attractive in the Big 12, but on the grand landscape of college football, you don't know exactly where they're top 25.
And again, you have to, I think the TV market thing is really a little overblown for TCU.
Yeah.
Now, have they been good in football? Yeah, they're good in football, and they've hung their own in the Big 12. But I'll tell you, they're the cautionary tale for UCF, Memphis, Cincinnati of like, you can dominate the AAC, right? You can go 14-0. Well, TCU's only done it in the Big 12 one time, and then the rest of the time they've been a good but not great team.
Sure.
So and part of that is when they first came into the Big 12, they were already kind of loaded, and a couple teams were a little bit down, so they were ready to pounce. Like Oklahoma, when they came in, was a little bit down. Since then, Oklahoma's not been down.
Yeah.
So, but you have that opportunity to pounce when you came in, but since then they've been good but not great. And like I said, the TV market thing's a little bit overblown. And if you are, say, the Big Ten, you think, I'm going to add TCU and that's going to get me the Dallas market. Well, no. I mean, like, the other thing is there's, like, in the Dallas market, there's way more Texas and OU and Texas A&M fans than there are TCU fans.
100%.
So, like, the three teams that can get you the Dallas market the most are already gone. They're already spoken for. So, it might get you a different chunk of it than – but I think, again, like we talked about that TV ratings or viewing thing last week, are you really going to make a decision over one school or not over 50,000 viewers? No. And it's also the views of not just the television market. What is streaming? Like, what's a streaming market?
Yeah.
What does that mean? Like, I don't even know what that means. Like, in fact, like streaming companies only seem to release their data when it benefits them. So if you've ever watched a show on streaming and you're like, man, it seemed like a lot of people liked that show and it was on social media and people were TikToking and tweeting about, oh my God, what just happened on Manifest, I guess is the big deal right now on Netflix. Well, Netflix is only going to tell you Manifest is doing well. It's only going to tell you it's doing poorly enough for them if they have to cancel it.
Yep.
But otherwise, they'll just go like, yeah, here's the numbers. It's good. Fine. We're going to throw money at it.
Hashtag manifest.
Yeah. But like HBO Max, like, I don't know how good how well the Snyder Cut did, so I don't really know how to gauge streaming numbers,
Yeah.
And is it not necessarily streamers, but how many people can you get? Can I convince all the people to subscribe for this app and then forget about it? Because that's what cable TV is.
Sure.
You're paying for channels that you never watch and will never watch in a million years. You, your fiance, neither of you will watch them in a million years.
Yeah.
Between your whole cable bill, say you got the full kit and caboodle of 800 channels or 1,000, you're going to watch maybe between the two of you 20?
On a good week.
On a good year.
On a good
year, you're going to watch 20 channels regularly. And so streaming, like, all they want is your $5.99 to $10.99 or $15.99 a month. And once they've got it and you forget about it because, well, it's $17.
Yeah, well,
I mean,
yeah.
that's in most people's minds.
I'm with you.
And then it all adds up. It all adds up eventually. So
yeah, and whatever it looks like right now, it's going to look substantially different in 3 to 4 years. I really think Amazon's a huge player in this, which maybe that's another theory for another time. But bottom line, the streaming platforms, the streaming world is going to be, I think, definitely moving towards the college football market with how much money we're seeing. And so, yeah, I mean, the TV numbers, the streaming thing, it's really hard to get a good gauge on exactly where that's going. This whole thing to me feels like buying a stock when it comes to adding these AAC teams, especially like UCF, probably trending upwards, but the sample size is also pretty small because in 2015 they were 0-12. So it's like they're attractive now, yes, because they went, undefeated, had a national championship, quote unquote, and they've done really well in the AAC. Also, big student body, all of those things in Florida. But what do they look like in 5 years? If they go 0-12 again in 2 years, are they still attractive? Do you still want to add UCF? I would venture to say probably not.
Now, and the thing is, it's like, I think the best thing for the Big 12 to do if they add teams is just pick those schools in the big markets.
Yeah.
Because that's, like I said, it's not an exact metric, and, it's not the same, but at the end of the day, isn't that the best thing to do is, grab as many alumni from schools as you can and make it work?
Yeah.
Because that's what you need. Again, most of your viewing is in Texas. So where can you go to other population centers to where you have, at least you can say, look, here's the alum, Memphis is I don't know what the Memphis student body is, but it's a decent sized market. Also, FedEx supports Memphis, so
there you go.
That's a sponsor you could get.
Aaron Brown.
Exactly. And Cincinnati's a growing and emerging market. It's a big market city. Orlando is. So those are the ones I would go to. And Houston, even though that you don't really need that market, it's still and again, Houston is like Dallas. It's if you get Houston or SMU, then you've got Dallas and Houston. Well, no, you don't, because SMU, take SMU, TCU, Baylor, Houston, roll them all up together, and you still have way more Oklahoma, A&M, and Texas fans in Dallas and Houston than you do, everywhere else. So, and I guess you can throw probably Tech into that. Might help get you closer to that number, but again, the bigger schools are the bigger schools.
And my question is, how many schools of that caliber do you have to add? How many markets like that exist? I'm thinking okay, USF maybe, UCF in addition, Houston, like you mentioned, SMU. That's 4 teams. And at that point, are you just trying to keep the conference alive? At what point is it best to go your own way and try to, get your own bag in a different conference?
Yeah, I mean, there might be a time where you just have to pull the plug on it, and you've been keeping this thing on life support long enough, and that's it, So that's the line that here's the only line the Big 12 needs to cross. The Big 12 these 8 teams need to cross the line where Texas, Oklahoma, and ESPN pay them all the money that they're owed.
Yep.
Or the majority of it. Once they cross that line, then anything in the future was going to be less anyway. So now you have to go and try to find it on your own, try to make it better there. So I don't know. I think that's really the kind of the big thing with the Big 12 is, cross that line, stay together until you can put the screws to Texas and Oklahoma as hard as you can, which the lawyers might be able to loosen those a little bit for OU and Texas. But until that point, I don't know what you can do. I really don't, other than, see what's out there and see what happens. And again, I think that if some of these schools were that attractive to other conferences, we wouldn't be seeing this right now.
Yeah.
We wouldn't be seeing all this other stuff. The Alliance would have waited out and been okay, we'll add, and again, okay, it's not there's 8 teams. If 7 of them are attractive and Kansas State was the one you wouldn't want to add, and again, I'm just being hypothetical.
Sure.
I'm not saying it's not you would just undo that whole thing because of the one team.
Yeah.
So to me, it means more of these teams were unattractive, or they would rather just see these teams fold off into different parts, get them on the cheap, and move on.
Yeah, I think the 2 things that I think about are, one, the longer this goes, the more confident I feel they'll get to cross that line, because when anarchy broke loose is when probably cooler heads wouldn't prevail, because you're oh my gosh, conference is going to the dogs, we got to find a home, this, that, and the other. There was a million different reports about the Big Ten, ACC, Pac-12, and all that. And so the fact that we've gotten to this point, the waters have kind of calmed down. It's okay, there might be some sort of plan, like you mentioned, to band together, get across the line, get what you're worth, and then try to figure it out from there. The second piece that I think is, okay, how much do you have to pay one of these schools to get out? Kind of like what we talked about with the whole tampering conversation. It's the biggest game of Jenga. If one of those teams decides, hey, we got a pretty sweet deal from insert conference here, then everyone else just probably goes back into panic mode, right? I wonder how much of that is going on, because the fact they're not included in the Alliance makes me think there's a lot more going on that isn't being released or that we don't know. Maybe that's too much of a conspiracy theory. Maybe I'm, getting what's the phrase? Maybe I'm getting too conspiracy theory happy, whatever you want to call it. But just the way that Oklahoma and Texas went about this makes me think, okay, there's a lot going on behind closed doors that we have no idea about. And so the fact that they're not jumping at the Big 12 makes me think, okay, maybe they know, that school is probably going to leave. We don't want to try and poach the Big 12.
Yeah. So I don't know. It's all a very confusing thing. And again, like I realize that they're all small schools, but to me there's value, and like it's not, if you already have a Wake Forest in your conference, what's adding a Baylor?
Totally.
They're going to be good. I mean, they're going to be good and they're going to get you into Texas. So they're going to be good in most everything. And like, look here, the deal is football is the least cyclical of the sports. Like if you look at it or they have the longest cycles. It's the longest cycles. I mean, it's everything cyclical, but like football's the slowest, ticking clock. So if you get really good, like Clemson's going to be good for probably another decade or so until, for example, with Texas, all it took was, 2 bad recruiting classes at quarterback in a row and some whiffs on the offensive line, and all of a sudden you go from national power to also ran. For Alabama, look, Gene Stallings left, and it was a couple bad coaching hires that they made right in a row after Gene Stallings before Nick Saban brought them back to prominence. So everybody's got a story. For Oklahoma, Barry Switzer left. John Blake came in. He could recruit. He couldn't really coach on the field. He wasn't an X and O guy. Bob Stoops came in. Excellent X and O guy, and his second year won the national title now, and they've kept at that same level pretty much. And their dips have been minor, little tiny dips.
Sure.
Oh, the quarterback got suspended for working at Big Red Motors, so we have to play another guy, or the defense isn't very good, so we'll get another defensive coordinator in here. All those, like Clemson. They didn't start winning national titles until they got Brent Venables in there.
Yeah.
Okay. What happens when Brent Venables leaves? If they don't make another, hire that was the perfect fit for that, say Brent Venables goes and takes a head coaching job next year.
Remember Clemsoning? That was a thing.
Yeah.
Hey, can't win the big game.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's all these things that happen. Nebraska had a bad AD. Bottom line, they had a bad athletic director. Their good athletic director retired. They hired a bad one. The bad one left them in it. But it's still slow cycles. So, again, if you're basing it on, how many people are going to watch a football game or this team may not be good every year in football, well, you have teams that have been, SEC has South Carolina and Vanderbilt. They've been in the same hamster wheel forever. So, it's not – there's this big narrative about the SEC and how great it is. It's it's got some big brand names, but also has some teams that are also rans.
And if the ultimate goal is to essentially take power back from the SEC and have a balance, is 49 not better than 41? Are you really tipping the scale that much if you don't include those 8 teams?
There's already 41 to 16.
Yeah,
the other thing is you're probably going to vote with them most of the time anyway, because what's good for the goose is good for the gander a lot of the time, but it does give you an alliance to where they can't. Maybe they won't poach, your teams all, they won't decide, what, we'd really like North Carolina.
Yeah.
Come, 10, if you build that alliance and maybe for 15 years or so before the ACC's grant of rights is up, you can build the ACC up. You can build the Pac-12 up. You can, if you're the Big Ten, you can keep pace with the SEC. I mean, you're already making more money than them now, but it's not going to be and if you're the Big Ten, you can't, there's more questions than answers, and there won't be until this is all over. Yeah. But, playoff expansion will probably shed some light on this, how much they do, if they do the full 12, or if if there's enough people in this alliance that don't want 12 and they want 6.
Yeah.
Then I still don't think it'd be 6. I think it would maybe back up to 8 with potential to grow to 12. But
I hope so. Yeah.
I know you hope so. Yeah. You're an elitist, but yeah, I think there's just so much stuff that could happen. We don't know about it. So
who just lucked out the most in this entire situation is the Pac-12, because the Pac-12 has USC and some other players, but for the most part, it sounds like they're the ones who are really cheering this whole thing on. The reports are all saying the Pac-12 was really excited about this. Everyone else was kind of on board, but the Pac-12 is that one excited kid, yeah, let's do this. Let's get against the SEC.
Their grant of rights is up in 2 years, and USC, they've got to keep them happy. So,
have to.
So otherwise, because USC is the one that could really wreck this thing, because if they lose USC, that's their golden child. Yeah. So if they lose USC, then it's no knock on everybody else, but that's the one we've had many different Pac-12 people like, look, got to keep USC happy, got to keep USC happy.
It's not a secret.
So if USC is not happy, then maybe they could go and join this other thing. So this helps keep USC happy. It probably helps your TV negotiations down the line, saying like, not only are we going to play great Pac-12 games, but we're going to have cross rivalries and conferences that you've never seen before. I don't know if Arizona State and Purdue is a game I want to watch, but I do know that like it's better than Arizona State and Western Michigan.
Yeah.
So those things are going to be better for TV, and it's going to be easier to negotiate down the line. I just hope that the Big 12 somehow gets involved in something like this, just for the sake of these schools.
It's kind of a slap in the face to the Big 12 any way you slice it. Of okay, not only are they not adding us, they're not worried about the SEC adding us either, because in theory, they're a free agent, right? So they could sign anywhere. And like you said, 41-16. If it becomes, do some quick math, 24-41, that won't happen. But I'm just saying, in that regard, like it's got to be a slap in the face either way you slice it for the Big 12.
Yeah. All right, when we come back, let's talk about some players in the Big 12 that we're looking forward to seeing this year, some of the people that you got to keep your eye on. And then Chalk Talk in our third segment. JD's going to break down Jeff Grimes' offense that he's bringing to Baylor. This is the Big 1-2 on 365 Sports, presented by Shorty's Pizza Shack.
Three Nations Brewing Company has 16 different beers on draft with a new beer every Friday. It also offers 2 air-conditioned tap rooms, a large indoor beer hall, a second-floor mezzanine offering a great overview of the brewing company and equipment and patio where you can relax under the shade. Plus, you can now experience the new Three Nations Beer Garden Grill on our shaded patio with socially distanced seating for your enjoyment. Grab a cold beer and enjoy a bite from our freshly prepared and delicious menu. Street tacos, quesadillas, freshly cooked burgers and dogs and veggie burgers too. State Fair tornado fries, nachos, and so much more, all prepared and cooked on site. So come visit the award-winning Three Nations Brewing Company on East Vandergrift off I-35 in Carrollton.
Welcome back into the Big 1-2 here on 365 Sports. I'm Paul Catalina, Sikkim 365 Radio, alongside JD Piquel. Oh, JD, again, we got to welcome our sponsor. Very excited about Shorty's Pizza Shack. If our Big 12 fans are coming into Waco this year and they want to know a good place to eat on game day, well, Shorty's is a game day locale.
It's iconic.
It's very iconic. Stop by, delicious New York-style pizza, the kind you fold over, and it's delicious. It's fantastic. I've been eating at Shorty since the first day it opened. Not every day. I'm just for the commenters. I'm not every day I see this, but
No.
but yeah, it's fantastic. Also, they have unbelievable wings. Have you ever had the wings?
Wings are really good. I was going
Yeah.
to say the wings are the big attraction for me.
Yes.
Phenomenal
Yeah,
wings.
get the wings Sikkim style.
Oh, I haven't had that.
Oh yeah, buddy.
Good way to go?
Oh yeah. That's the Sikkim sauce. Oh yes, yeah. That's what you got to do.
Okay, I know where I'm going after this then.
There you go. Yeah, get out of here. Like, I'm surprised you haven't gotten up and left yet.
Yeah.
but JD's a hard worker. He's committed to the task at hand. Now, JD, we were going to do this last week, and then we got so like deep in discussion about how the conference is going to break down. We kind of ignored the guys in the conference who are going to make it go.
Yeah.
The big time players, the ones who we're kind of surprised about. And look, this is a conference that has some really interesting things happening at a lot of different positions. Like at quarterback, probably a little top heavy right now, because there's so many things we don't know. For example, Baylor just named their starting quarterback. Max Duggan at TCU, someone to watch, but he's been like this over his whole career.
Mm-hmm.
There's 2 guys for sure, Spencer Rattler and Brock Purdy. We know what they're going to be, and we may not know what Spencer Rattler's going to be completely yet because he still has a little bit of growing up to do, and he's already fantastic. So at the quarterback position, who are some guys that you've got your eye on that you like, and maybe some dark horse candidates that would surprise people?
I think I'm really excited to see how Tyler Shaw does with his new home in Texas Tech. A lot of hype around him coming from Oregon. They need to win now. Like in terms of pressure on the Texas Tech program, on that staff, they need to win now. For Tyler Shaw, a guy that obviously has NFL aspirations, anytime you transfer to another Power 5 program because you lost the job at another Power 5 program, like this is his time to shine. It's kind of a prove-it year for both those parties, if you will. So I'm really excited to see what he does and how he responds in a new spot. Another guy, Jarrett Dagey. I just go like this when I talk about Jarrett Dagey. I don't know exactly what he's going to be. I think he is someone that will obviously have an enormous impact on what West Virginia does, probably more than some of these other quarterbacks because of the, lack of weapons around him, like they're going to ask a lot of Jarrett Doege. And so if he's able to answer that call, I think that West Virginia has a chance to be really good, especially what they have on defense. I know they lost a lot in the transfer portal. I think they have a lot on defense to still be able to supplement whatever that offense brings.
You know, I've always just had this idea in my head that Jarrett Doege is a bus driver, and I don't know if that's completely fair to him. And he might have had to be while he acclimated to Neil Brown's offense.
Sure.
So we'll see what happens there. Look, Skylar Thompson back at K-State as a sixth-year guy. I don't think he's going to set the world on fire, but he's very steady, and he's a veteran. Plus, they have Will Howard behind him, who had to play as a 17-year-old freshman last year. They've got some depth there that's exciting. But, yeah, I think more or less, like if you look at, Baylor just picked Gary Bohannon this past weekend. Texas has not named a starter as of this taping. They haven't named a starter. I assume that's coming soon, and it might be Hudson Card over Casey Thompson. So we don't know. There's a lot of wild cards when it comes to new quarterbacks, and of course with Kansas, it probably doesn't really matter who that is just right now. They've got a lot of other issues other than that, but quarterback's just one of the many issues that Kansas is going to have. But I think there's some interesting things at quarterback going on in the league.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that race down in Austin, you got to be a little bit concerned if you're a Longhorn fan because fall camp is nearing the end. I'm not sure exactly what Texas's calendar is. Baylor's already finished, assuming Texas is almost finished. To not have a starter named yet when Steve Sarkisian said, hey, I want to name a starter sooner rather than later, and I want someone to take the job. To not have a starter named leaves me to believe, okay, someone hasn't taken the job. And so I know there was a report that came out about their first scrimmage, and scrimmages are scrimmages, especially the first one of fall camp, but the reports about that were not great. And so for Casey Thompson, Hudson Card, to not have a guy step up and be the guy who said, hey, this is my team, I'm the alpha, I'm going to run this show, you got to feel a little bit uneasy if you're a Longhorn fan, I think.
Yeah. I do think, moving on to like the skill positions, this is a conference that maybe some of that's gotten lost in the shuffle a little bit nationwide, but running back-wise, I think this is a conference that is super, super stacked. Wide receivers, pretty stacked, although, they lose a guy like Tylan Wallace, who was great last year, and, Charleston Rambo, who I thought would have been good in the Big 12 this year, is now in the ACC at Miami, but I don't think that the losses outweigh the gains or things that they've had because Oklahoma adds Eric Gray, and they essentially add back Kennedy Brooks, who opted out last year for COVID. That's two big-time players. Breece Hall, big-time player. Bijan Robinson is going to be most of Steve Sarkisian's offense, you would assume, early on, and most of their offense, even if it was humming, because he's a star player. But really good depth at running back in this league. Your thought on that position?
Yeah, I 100% agree. I think there's a lot of guys here that can make noise, not just at a conference level, but also at national level. Like Bijan Robinson has the potential in this new offense to be a guy that's up for a lot of national awards when it's all said and done. Breece Hall, one of the most productive, if not the most productive running back coming back this season for Iowa State and what they ask him to do. You go down the list, Eric Gray, like you mentioned, Kennedy Brooks, how are they going to be as a 1-2 punch? How do they split carries? And then you look at Baylor, Abram Smith, Treston Ebner was an All-American as a return man. So there's so many guys that I think have a chance to make an impact nationally and not just in this conference. Also should be noted, there's a lot of these teams in the Big 12 that have not just one, but two good options in the backfield. And so I think they do get lost in the shuffle because there's this connotation of, it's a quarterback league. They don't play a lot of defense. You look around the league, Deuce Vaughn's another guy that plays really hard and is super fun to watch. He's like Mighty Might the way he plays. There's a lot of guys that can do, I think, a lot of damage on a national scale as well. So really, really strong conference when it comes to running the football.
Yeah, Deuce Vaughn might be my favorite player in this league. I really enjoy watching him play and the different things he can do with him. And look, that offense that Chris Kleiman runs at Kansas State is not – it's not Steve Sarkisian's offense. No. It's not Jeff Grimes' offense, which is less ornate than I think the last offense goes, but maybe more effective that Baylor ran. It's definitely not Oklahoma's offense, but he allows them to do so many different things that they don't normally do at Kansas State. I love watching Deuce Vaughn play. And again, he's little, but he's carved out of wood, and it's just I love watching Deuce Vaughn. He's
shades of Darren Sproles almost.
Yeah, he's a little bit bigger than that.
Yeah.
Powerful. Here's the deal. Darren Sproles is a little bit shorter than me, which made me feel good. Most of the time when I meet professional athletes, I feel like God stopped making me early. That's enough. I'm good there. I've got a lot of other people to make. He's fine. He'll be funny. That's his thing. He'll have to stand on his tiptoes to get literally everything out of his cabinets, but that's fine.
Articulate as well. You're articulate and funny.
Yeah. So, I mean, thank you for the second skill that I have.
Okay.
But
no,
yeah, I mean, like that's what I thought. But yeah, but with Darren Sproles, it's like, oh, I mean, this little dude. I mean, he's. I remember standing next to him in the post game locker room after they played Baylor. I was like, there we go.
There it is.
Yeah.
And I mean, it should be noted as well. Credit to these coaching staff, because there's the old cliche, it's not the Jimmies or it's not the X's and the O's, the Jimmies and the Joes, which any old ball coach likes to throw that in wherever they can. But you talk about Deuce Vaughn, he is perfect for what Kansas State likes to do. Talk about Breece Hall, perfect for what Iowa State likes to do. And then I think Abram Smith is a guy that has a chance to do really well in Baylor's offense and their new wide zone scheme. But there's a lot of guys that I think are in the exact right fit for them. And credit to these coaches getting them the ball in the way that's most effective for them, most efficient for them.
What's going to be interesting about Abram Smith at Baylor is Baylor did not have a guy, and this includes Treston Ebner, that like you hand him the ball and you can get 4 yards.
Yeah.
Like with Treston Ebner, he's a big play guy. As a matter of fact, I think he's an NFL player, but I think in the NFL he's not necessarily going to line up at running back all the time. I think that his skill will be they're going to move him around. Like Tyreek Hill. I mean, he's not that fast. I mean, nobody's that fast.
Right.
But, he's going to be that kind of guy that just kind of moves. Percy Harvin, moves around and does those kind of X factor things with an offense like the Saints that doesn't have, rules.
Right. Yeah.
They don't, follow normal things. I think that's where he fits in the NFL. So what Baylor didn't have was, all right, I'm going to hand you the ball. I want 4 yards.
Yeah. They
did not have that guy. Granted, they didn't have an offensive line that also would get them 4 yards. Sometimes about them, but they don't have the guy who's like a one cut and go, because the wide zone is you don't waste a lot of time.
No.
I mean, it is, so you're talking about one cut, one look, decision, go.
Yeah.
That's what you have to do is make your decision and go, because the wide zone is almost not designed just to gain yards. It's designed not to lose yards. So, the point of it is we're at least back to the line of scrimmage every time.
Yeah.
If everybody does their job to the bare minimum, we're at least where we were when we started out this play, and not in the backfield. And that's not the case for necessarily the veer and or other offenses like that, or the spread option, or these different kind of inverted wishbones that we see now that are the pistol offense. It's not necessarily the same thing for them. They're willing to risk losing a couple yards in the running game because they want people to creep up. But I think with Abram Smith, can he be a guy who you hand the ball off and he can get 4 or 5 yards?
Yeah.
Sometimes that's the best play you can make. You don't need 30 yards on every play. Sometimes at the end of the game, you need, instead of 30 yards, you need 5 yards 6 times to run the clock out.
Absolutely.
They need that. I think that's what he can do in this offense.
Absolutely. And I think that's where Treston Ebner might be a different flavor for you in the offense. Like you said it great. He is phenomenal in space. Abram Smith previously was a linebacker, was a running back, was a linebacker, running back again, gets downhill in a hurry, which is what you need in this offense. And I think, riffing on that, that's to me why Gary Bohannon was the right guy for this job. You talk about just true quarterback, let him go play 7-on-7. I don't know if he's your best option, juxtaposed with a guy like Jacob Zeno, who's a great pocket passer, but Gary Bohannon's going to keep you on schedule. He's not going to lose you yards. Also, you get to add the whole quarterback wide zone, quarterback power thing, and especially if the offense can just be, the offensive line can be a step above development-wise from a year ago, they have a chance, I think, to really do some exciting things on that side of the ball.
Yeah. Wide receivers and tight ends, listen, there's one. I mean, this is not a big tight end conference. So we'll flip it. Charlie Kohler at Iowa State is an NFL player. He's going to be a pretty high draft pick in the first couple rounds, I would think. He's a big guy, catches tons of touchdown passes. He is, if I'm a linebacker or a safety, and I'm drawing Charlie Kohler, I know that my week is going to suck.
Hopefully you got a little bit of help, too. Hopefully they got – but then Iowa State's got Allen, too. I mean, they got a lot of guys they can get the ball to, which is – it's just kind of funny to me the way Iowa State's built, and Dave Aranda talked about it a little bit during Big 12 Media Days. The Big 12, in some regard, is sort of trending more and more towards that Big 10 makeup of things. You see these teams going double tight end. Baylor would go double tight end a lot this year. So, no, I'm 100% with you, though. If you got Kohler – you're in for a long week. So there's nobody on any scout team across the Big 12 that can emulate what he's going to bring on Saturday afternoon.
No, again, and the thing is where he's going to hurt you is, he'll make some big plays for a tight end. I mean, he's going to get some that are 35 yards. It's going to happen. But where he's going to hurt you is 3rd and 9. He's going to go about 11 yards, a couple yards past the sticks, and stand there and go, I dare you. go ahead. I'm going to jump over you, or I'll be bigger than you. I'm going to knock you down. Like, you're not going, or I'm going to catch it at 7 yards, and good luck tackling me right then.
Yeah.
You better square up on me. And that's tough, And so it's going to be interesting. I'm going to say this for the first time in a long time. I like Iowa State's offense. I like what they're going to be able to do, power and knocking you around. And look, they've got, Hutchinson, the wide receiver, who's really good, but like honestly, this offense is going to be about knocking people in the mouth and making them come up with a bloody lip. I really enjoy that. I watched enough of the spread in the Big 12 conference, which the spread's fine.
Yeah,
but I do like an offense that like pretty much tells you here's what we're going to do, and we're not going to try to like catch you in space all the time, or this is not going to be a track meet. Like this is going to be, we're going to mud wrestle, and at the end of this, you're not getting up.
It's the opposite of all gas, no brakes in Texas. It's no, we're going to dictate our tempo to you. We're going to run the football. We're going to be more physical than you. We're going to knock you down. And then at the end of the game, when it's 21-7, we're going to go home and probably do it again next week after everyone ices up. And so I'm really interested to see what happens to Iowa State when they play in Oklahoma or a team like Texas that wants to go fast and they're down by 2 scores. I'm really interested to see, okay, are you able to then climb back in? Can you generate enough firepower to be able to get into those shootout kind of games and dictate the tempo at that point? So I'm really excited, though, to see what they do and how that translates, because there is just a myriad of different schemes in the Big 12 right now, and Iowa State is sort of that outlier that I think it's trending more and more towards as we progress here with these recruiting.
Yeah. Wide receivers, to me, it starts and ends with Marvin Mims. I mean, like he was freshman last year, was fantastic. I think he's in that CeeDee Lamb mold of like, give him the ball, and watch the show.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And this is a league that usually is pretty deep in wide receivers, but there's been kind of a transition there as to where we don't know who they're going to be. Look, Baylor a couple years ago was like a wash and really good wide receivers, and then last year nobody put in a good year. So we don't know about that. TCU, that who's their big playmaker going to be on the outside, really? West Virginia's got to answer that question. Kansas State has to answer that question. There's a ton of teams that like Texas really does kind of have to answer that question at wide receiver.
Yeah.
So many Texas Tech all have to answer questions at wide receiver. Oklahoma doesn't.
Yeah.
Oklahoma State doesn't. But Iowa State doesn't. And those are probably the top 3 teams in the league. But that's a position that I'm having a harder chance like wrapping my arms around with. Who's got the deepest group outside of the obvious ones?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think obviously Oklahoma is just like, it's embarrassing how many good receivers they have. Mario Williams is a guy that I'm really excited to see. Early enrollee, true freshman from Florida. Dude is lightning in a bottle. I think he'll be huge in the slot for them. You look around the conference, Brendan Presley is a guy that I really like. You mentioned Oklahoma State. I think he's going to take a big step this year, had a huge bowl game. As far as the other teams go, I'm excited to see what Baylor has. I know there's guys like Tyquan Thornton who were great the year before in 2019, his sophomore season, kind of fell off a year ago. Is that because of the scheme? Is that because Charlie Brewer was running for his life every other play? I think he could be in for a big bounce back year. He may be a guy that has like 4 catches, but his yards per catch will be like through the roof, like 30, 40, because it'll be wide zone, wide zone, wide zone. Tyquan Thornton, 40 yards downfield, touchdown, because of what this offense is going to allow them to do from a big play standpoint when they do pop. We'll get to that later. But Tyquan Thornton's a guy that I'm watching pretty closely to see how he's able to come back from a year last year that obviously was less than his expectations.
Yeah, and this is just kind of short little sidebar. One day if I could pick position players from every state, like what the best ones is, like if I want to get fast players, I'm going to South Florida. That's where like the fastest guys seem to come from. Why? I don't know. I mean, like, I know there's fast guys everywhere, but, like, if I want a team full of fast guys, like, I'm going to go, like, Tampa South, and I'm just going to get guys who can run.
Yeah, Tyquan.
Tyquan Thornton's from Fort Lauderdale. So he's from South Florida. So you got him. If I want defensive linemen, I'm going, like, Alabama, Georgia, Mississippi, North Florida, like East Texas, like those, that's where I'm going to get those guys, like linemen, that's where the mean linemen are. Quarterbacks, I want to go to Texas because there's so much development with quarterbacks at an early age that guys can play a little bit quicker, or that they've been running college offenses like Diet Coke college offenses, essentially. They're not full-blown college offenses, but they're running that kind of offense all the time. Dang. Since the 7th grade, they're running the same offenses that you're running, save, 11 protections, they have 3.
Yeah.
Like save, 50 routes, they have 3.
No West Coast? No West Coast for the quarterback?
But so, and maybe a little bit on the West Coast,
Okay.
but like a little bit on the West Coast, because there's some good guys out there. But like, and then on the West Coast, that's where I want to go get my linebackers, my guys. Like, I'm just telling you, like, but again, and of course, linebackers is an ever morphing position in modern college football, as we see the 4-2-5. Like now that 4-2-5, one of those 5 is really a guy who might have been a linebacker, might have been a safety. He's not really either one. He
can burn.
This thing now.
Yeah.
He can run, but he can't run maybe laterally that fast, or he runs laterally that fast, but not back that fast. So we're going to put him right here in the box, and he's going to cover the tight end, the running back, and he's going to wreak havoc, and that's what he's going to do. But if we put him back at a normal safety, he couldn't do that. If we put him in the middle linebacker, he's going to get knocked over. So we're going to put him out here in space and make sure he cleans up out here. Yeah. But, that's an ever-changing – it's not what I thought. Like, when I was a kid, Lawrence Taylor's a linebacker.
Sure.
Like, now, granted, he can play in any era, but, like, there wasn't, there weren't guys, for example, like Terrell Bernard was not a linebacker.
Right.
Like, if you look at him compared to the linebackers of yore, it's a different thing. It's a different thing altogether. But we'll talk about defensive players next week. Okay, of the offensive linemen in the Big 12, the big-time guys, who would you like to be blocked by the least?
Who'd like to be blocked by the least? Golly. Connor Galvin's my neighbor. And so seeing him in the driveway, I'm like, I really would like to just not be on your bad side probably. Now, Baylor's offensive line will have a lot of questions to answer, but Connor Galvin's a large human being. I might vote Connor Galvin there.
I'm going to vote Wanye Morris from Oklahoma.
Okay.
I like, he's the one that I would, no matter how big and badass a defensive end or linebacker I am, I just don't want to draw that.
Yeah.
I'd rather go somewhere else. I would just rather be somewhere else. Like that to me, I'd rather be somewhere else.
Yeah.
I don't know. And again, like this is a harder thing to gauge year in, year out. The lineman's the hardest thing to judge. You can think you're going to have a good line coming back, and then you don't because of whatever reasons. And, so it's hard to judge. But like that dude right there, I don't want him. Like if he gets his hands inside my pads, I don't want that.
That's probably across the board for me, at least for Oklahoma.
Yeah.
But I think you hit it on the head. It's tough to gauge. The best metric for me is returning linemen. That's why I think Texas has a chance with 4 coming back. That's why I think Iowa State has a good chance to be good. Obviously, just because of the way that they do things at Iowa State too. You're gonna have a good offensive line, but yeah, it is kind of feast or famine. It seems like when you try to take a look at what you got on the offensive line.
All right, well, we talked offense this week. We'll talk defense next week, and plus we'll have a couple games maybe next week.
Yeah, that sounds
great. We'll have some games to talk about, which will be more of our show. When we come back, Chalk Talk. JD goes to the board and shows you Jeff Grimes' new offense at Baylor. This is the Big 1-2, brought to you by Shorty's Pizza Shack on 365 Sports. Life is back on, sports bettors, and BetUS has your NBA, NHL, Major League Baseball, UFC, PGA, and yes, NFL betting lines up for their 27th year and live betting on all of it. Log into BetUS.com or call 800-792-3887. That's 800-79-BETUS. BetUS for 125% bonuses with promo code SICK'EM125. Customer service pros are ready to get your phone, social, and online sports betting kickoff started now. Play with the proven mainstay in the industry. BetUS. You bet, you win, you get paid. BetUS.com. Use promo code SICK'EM125. Welcome back to the Big 1-2 here on 365 Sports, brought to you by Shorty's Pizza Shack. If you're in town watching us from around the Big 12, want a great game day location, Shorty's Pizza Shack at 12th and Bagby. They got the slice board. They got great pizza, great wings, great drink specials. We are now into JD's Chalk Talk. I'm Paul Kedlina. He's JD Piquel. He's got the chalk, and he'll do most of the talking here. JD, we're going to talk about Jeff Grimes' offense at BYU and what he brings to Baylor. Obviously, this one's a little different because they have Zach Wilson. Baylor doesn't have Zach Wilson. They hope that they do. Maybe they do on their roster. Maybe they have a guy like that. But this is an offense that worked really well last year. The wide zone going to be starkly different than what the Bears ran in 2020.
Absolutely. And if you're a Baylor fan, you have an identity now offensively. Their identity is to run the wide zone. Everything they want to do predicated off this wide zone run play. If you watch the Broncos in the 90s, this is something they built their offense around. Obviously, college football now has taken it and added a bunch of counters and nuances to it, but that's kind of the bread and butter that they're going to have. BYU was a little more balanced last year offensively, and I think Baylor will be this year. About 51% run, 49% pass. I would imagine Baylor will be a little bit higher, but all that's to say, they want to run the football and establish that wide zone scheme early and often. So this is what it's all built on, the wide zone right here. The lineman, you're getting horizontal. You're trying to capture the outside edge of this defender. You're trying to get his shoulder so your running back can just get a nice little crease up in there. Now, if he wants to overrun it, we're going to cut right up underneath him. So it's all like an ebb and flow. We're trying to get this defense flowing as much as possible to set it up. So you'll see it right here. The first step for the offensive line is horizontal up this way, not to any particular guy, but just to try and get them and hook them in so this running back has a nice way to go. Also, note the personnel. You got 2 tight ends here. They can be very multiple with what they want to do on offense here because they have a lot of different players. I would expect that Jeff Grimes does the same and make sure he capitalizes on all the skill players that Baylor has between their tight end room with Dabney, Henley, Sims. I've talked enough. Let's get to the board. So you see it here. Watch this first step. Boom. They're all moving right there. They're all moving first step to the left to try and capture the outside shoulder. Now watch this guy. That linebacker rolls up. Tight end's supposed to take care of him. Can't get him, so what happens? Cuts right up underneath. Gets back outside to the flow of the play is Algier. Burners does the rest. Speed kills. Boom. Strike up the band. Cowboys a little quick here. Right here you have, it looks like a play action deal. So another thing you're going to be able to do out of this is the play action game of BYU. So when those defenders want to creep up, got something for you right behind you. So look at, snap of the football. They're all used to the wide zone. Troy's scared to death. They got 24 points hung on them so far. Linebackers are all keying right here. Look at, they're all flat-footed, even cheating up a little bit because they see this motion. They see the running back starting to go up, see the lineman starting to take a step to their wide zone scheme. Look right here. Uh-oh. All by himself. Touchdown. And we'll back it up here. Look how wide open my man is here.
And that wasn't even that great of a fake.
Wasn't even a great fake. Was not a great fake at all. And people are saying Gary Bohannon is he have the arm to play in his offense. Paul, you and I can make that throw. Yeah. He's by himself. It was even he left it short. He threw a touchdown.
I'll tell you, if you watch the Oklahoma game, the short time that Gary Bohannon played, the throws he did make, he's got the arm to do it. Now, does he have the touch to do it? That's the question on Gary Bohannon. But he can make that throw because, again, that fake, if I'm the NFL and watching Zach Wilson make that fake, I'm be like, that's something we're going to work on.
Yeah.
Like, you're going to sell that a little bit harder. That is not exactly the old Peyton Manning watch tape of you doing real handoffs fake. That was just
Absolutely.
But it still worked like a charm.
Worked like a charm because they run the wide zone enough to get that defense keying up, and they're scared to death about getting just beat over the head again and again. Tired of getting yelled at because they're not getting to the edge and covering that running back. So, big play, BYU, strike up the band. Again, Zach Wilson threw the ball a lot last year. I think they won't do it quite as much in Baylor's scheme, but still, the fact you get guys running wide open because of what the wide zone makes the defense do, really encouraging for Baylor fans. Now, we mentioned it earlier. The defense is going to get tired of getting beat over and over again. So look, he's flowing. You create enough flow to where the defense is like, all right, we're tired of getting beat to the sideline. We're going to stop that before the play. We're going to cheat. So look, he's already running. He's already keying outside. He's coming up to fill. So what happens when you overcommit to the flow works against you, and you can cut right up underneath it. So you never want to cut back in this scheme, but you want to cut up. So look, he's going to press the heels of this tight end until there's a big gaping hole. He's going to cut right up underneath it. So Navy overcommits to the flow of the wide zone. That's where BYU catches them sleeping. Boom. Speed does the rest. We're home.
So for our viewers, JD, one of the things that really cool about this offense is, again, it's pretty simple at its core. It has simple goals.
Yep.
Like, give your playmaker one spot to go. Don't give him a bunch of choices to make, but once he makes that choice, he's going to get yardage.
1,000%. You want to make sure you have it all around the same principle of the wide zone. They'll do a lot of motions and things as well, which we'll get into here in a second, but all of it is predicated on getting 3 yards and a cloud of dust. You get 3 yards every single play, you are winning football games if you're Baylor this coming season. Like, that play wasn't built to go however long it did, 30, 40 yards for a touchdown. It was built to get 4 yards. Back had great vision, great speed, saw the hole, did the rest. So here, we talked about it before, different formations. They can be very multiple to what they want to do here with the wide zone. You see them go out a pistol here, same footwork, same kind of play. He's going to do a split step right here, push the heels of the outside lineman right here, try and make him wrong. He will be wrong if you have a good read. We'll see it, split step. Again, they're playing up over it. Guess what? He's leading the way. They're already out of the play. Running back, see that, be patient, still press his heels to keep him honest. Get up here, set us up with a nice little 2nd and 2. Boom, run hard. That's another thing I'm excited about. This offense will have an identity of being physical. Eric Mateos, Jeff Grimes, they're guys that are going to make sure this Baylor offense is not, I don't want to say the word soft, that seems kind of mean, but they're going to make sure they play with an edge, because we saw that last year. There was no edge from this Baylor offense. That will not be the case this year as they continue to play with just grit.
Outside
black
of
and blue.
Physical problems that they had last year, they seemed confused every snap. Like everyone just seemed confused, and part of that was the nature of the beast. But they seemed real confused, and credit Dave Aranda for going, okay, what do I have on this offense, talent-wise, and what scheme-wise will intersect the things where we can make a simple adjustment, use the guys we have, and see some growth. I think this is, and again, the proof's going to be in the pudding, JD, but the wide zone is probably the best way they could have gone based on the personnel they had, especially left over from Matt Rule, who likes big, slobber-knocking offense. This is kind of like, it's not what they were running under Jeff Nixon, but it's not as far off as what they were trying to do under Larry Fedora last year.
1,000%. It's not a complex offense. Not complex. Also, I think you said it very well. The personnel is not a tall order. Like this lineman, if you see them, or we'll get to the next slide here, this line is not enormous. You don't have guys that are going to be playing on Sundays, all 5 of them. Now they could, it's not a knock on BYU, but the fact of the matter is you're not trying to overpower your man as much as you are just trying to wash him where he wants to go. So if you want to keep running with us, we're just going to keep letting you run to the sideline. We'll take you all the way there. We'll use your momentum against you, which is something that Baylor, I think, will be able to capitalize on.
The zone offense of the Broncos with Alex Gibbs, the offensive line coach back in the 90s, those guys, look at Mark Schlereth was one of them. Mark Schlereth is not Larry Allen big. I mean, they were smaller offensive linemen because they do have to get horizontal before they go vertical, like you said. So you want a guy whose first step laterally is quicker. Well, that's usually not a big, gigantic, huge dude like Orlando Pace, but it's maybe somebody who's a little bit leaner and smaller and quicker out there. And it's more about the technique than about pure brute strength. Like, the Cowboys' offense of the 90s was, we have the biggest offensive line. They're going to knock you in the dirt. We'll see you on the next play when you wipe your ass off. I mean, that's basically what there's going to happen.
Absolutely. No, I mean, they're not trying to absolutely beat you up. They are, but not with a power scheme or with we're just going to go man-on-man block here. Another thing you can do out of it, the motions, the window dressing. This is the exact next play. So they just had a nice little gain of 8, and now the whole defense is shook, right? They're worried about, is this wide zone going to come this way, that way, the other way? So these linebackers, this defensive line, they're all key in the offensive line. So the offensive line is going to take a step this way. They're going to go wide zone left, essentially. We're going to get a motion right here that's going to get just enough movement to make them just enough confused to pick up that first down. So watch what my man here does. He'll hesitate for just a second. He's supposed to be on this this speed sweep, if you will. Watch him. It's not going to be a... I'm wrong. Him. Watch him hesitate just enough. Just enough. Still makes the tackle, but we're still getting. We're still picking up with that motion. You're getting guys to hesitate, and you don't need them to totally go the other way. You don't need a complete deception. You get enough to make sure that they are just having a second thought, beat them to the spot, and you're getting a first down.
All right. So what's next, JD? This is on the blue turf.
Blue turf.
Look. This is a game, if you look at the score right there, that doesn't happen on the blue turf all that often. Now, granted, BYU had already played 7 games and Boise State had just started their season.
Sure.
But even still, this shows you how dominant this offense could be.
So dominant. I mean, the motions, I think, is something we heard a lot about out of camp. They're so deceptive. They do a lot with, speed sweep motions like we saw in the previous play. This is just the same thing. They're going to go wide zone to the right, speed sweep to the left, and everyone's confused on the blue turf. And he trots in for 6. Easy. Same thing here. He's coming across. They have no idea what's going on. Again, short week, so that probably helped them. Short week, they see the motion this way. They've been beat with the wide zone enough times. They've been beat with the motion enough times. They're all out of whack. They bite so hard on this motion, and it's just an easy right up the gut for Algier. We'll see it. Boom. Everyone's flowing. He's that way. He's that way. He's that way. Buddy has two guys coming at him. He's not going to make the tackle. See ya. Great cut. Again, they over-pursued this way. They overcompensated for the wide zone. Speed does the rest. Speed kills. Should we mention Algier, also a converted linebacker. He's a guy that was playing linebacker a year ago, gets downhill fast. You're not going to see a lot of shake and bake from him. Same with Abram Smith. I really like Abram Smith in this offense for that purpose.
And you mentioned those speed sweeps. I mean, not only Treston Ebner, but Josh Fleeks and some of the other guys, Squirrel Williams. I mean, Squirrel Williams on a speed sweep. Those are personnel things that Baylor can do in this offense that will move those running backs and wide receivers around to give them more opportunities, which they did not have last year. They kind of had, two opportunities to get the ball in their hands. This is a lot more diverse offense.
Absolutely. I mean, Josh Fleeks off the speed sweeps, a guy I'm really excited to see. We saw him in the spring game. I think he got called back. Took one to the house with a club on his hand. That's just enough of what the motions do for you. They get the defense hesitating. They don't have to take a complete guy out of the play, hesitating enough to where you have the speed to beat him to the edge and get where you want to go. Now, you can also do some RPO stuff, do some play action stuff. We saw that very first play, went deep to my man Dax, got him wide open on the poor fake from Zach Wilson, but you can also do a lot out of the RPO game. This is a hitches concept, so he's going to come right here and sit right here. Wilson's read right around here. If they want to flow with what this outside wide zone is bringing, he will just throw it right here. If they want to sit, we'll hand it and he'll walk in. Probably have both here, honestly. Boom. He's sitting. He doesn't trust it. He wants to make sure he's here for the backside of the wide zone. My man. Again, not hard throws. Zach Wilson can make some hard throws. Gary Bohannon's not going to have to fit it in a window every single time. Good timing, easy money, strike up the band.
There we go. Well, I mean, that's something else. It's simplified. Not a ton of hard throws. You got a new quarterback, and you might have two different new quarterbacks. Mm-hmm. If Gary Bohannon struggles, or say somebody overtakes him eventually in practice, then you might have to switch again. Somebody gets injured, you're going to have to switch again. Keep it simple, because you got three guys who've thrown maybe a total of 20 passes between them in college football. So keep it simple, especially early on.
The simplicity of this offense is what's going to make whoever's playing quarterback comfortable. I'm not asking you to do a ton. Make the right read, make the simple read. You probably have 1 to 2 options on each play. Deliver the football. Don't try to overcomplicate it. Now we put it all together here. We talked about the motion, talked about the wide zone making everybody nervous, the movement. This is a perfect play action example where they're going to get him coming across, coming back across. They're nervous for the speed sweep. They're confused because they've had it run on them all night long. They're going to get it run on them a whole lot more as this game progresses, but we see it here early. Play action. They're just all out of whack. The motion puts them all out of whack. This is a best case scenario where the motion actually does confuse them enough to where they have no idea who's got who and what assignment it is. He's going to come off a play action fake, slip right here. He's coming in hot off a blitz. Wilson recognizes it right away. Dumps it to my man. Again, strike up the band. We got him, coach. So watch. He's coming across. And watch what these linebackers do. Boom. He's up here. He's got a speed sweep. He's got it figured out. Speed sweep. I got it, coach. Got it, coach. Speed sweep. Coming down to run support. For sure. Oh, he doesn't have the ball. Uh-oh. He's all by himself. This is a whole lot of green grass. Now, this is a little bit of a tougher throw because you got somebody in your face. Hard to make a throw with someone in your lap, but look at it. Put some good touch on it. Strike up the band. And again, I don't think that's too tall of an order for Gary Bohannon. He's still a Division I quarterback. Alabama wanted him as a linebacker. Georgia wanted him as a linebacker. He was a great athlete. Still a guy that came to Baylor to play quarterback. So I think that's going to be an easy throw for him. This offense has a lot of answers and a lot of things that keep you not only ahead of the chains, but also ahead of the defense schematically.
All right. Anything else, JD?
Man, that was it. That's the grand finale.
Again, I'm riveted by all of this. And I'm very excited to see this in practice in the Big 12 with Baylor this year, an offense that struggled mightily. That's Chalk Talk. Thank you, everybody, for watching the Big 1-2. We're pretty happy with the debut last week. Let's beat it this week, and let's beat it every week, guys. Thank you for liking and subscribing. And if you haven't liked and subscribed, do it, or I'm sending JD to your house, and he's going to beg you. He's not going to muscle you up. Like, he's got muscles. He's not a scary guy. He's just going to beg you. And you don't want to see a guy like that
Puppy dog
be
eyes.
that pathetic.
Puppy dog eyes.
Like and subscribe. Like and subscribe. Tell your friends. Tell your enemies. Tell whoever. This is the big one, too. I'm Paul Catalini. He's JD Piquel. Thanks to Jack McKenzie and Armstrong Sims for their production work in the background. And thanks to Shorty's Pizza Shack at 12th and Bagby. Find out more at shortyspizzashack.com. This is the big one, too, on 365 Sports.